Story 1. The Oklahoma City Whisper. I was in my second year of trucking, 25 years old at the time, and still learning which instincts to trust. Unlike the typical advice to listen to your gut, life on the road teaches you there are many kinds of instincts. The instinct for survival, the instinct for paranoia, and the instinct of pure exhaustion. You had to learn to differentiate. Oklahoma City, August 2020. The humid Oklahoma heat hadn't broken, even at 1:30 a.m. I had timed my fuel stop meticulously, slotting into that lull between the late dinner crowd and the 2 a.m. bar exodus. The goal was a massive travel center off I-40, one of the ones with good security cameras. Usually, that's when truck stops are quietest. Swipe the card, set the nozzle, glove up, hit the restroom, grab a cold energy drink, get back out. The same sequence every time. Because the less you have to think about the mundane things, the faster you notice when something is truly wrong. That night, I parked my Freightliner near pump number 7, close enough to the store to shorten the walk and stay within sight of at least 2 cameras. A couple of trucks were idled across the lot, their engines rumbling like the deep, endless bass line of the highway blues. I swiped my card, heard the familiar click of the pump engaging, and leaned against the side of my truck, stretching my back. Then I heard a whisper so faint I initially thought it was the hiss of the pump or a compressed air leak. It wasn't a sound. It was a word. Don't leave me. I snapped my head around, my heart knocking a hard beat against my ribs. A girl was standing at the edge of the pump island, maybe 17, perhaps 18. No jacket, no bag, just worn denim shorts and a white t-shirt. She wore old sneakers with no socks. Her light brown hair was pulled back carelessly into a loose bun as if she had left in a hurry, or as if someone had roughly grabbed her. She wasn't swaying or slurring her words like someone drunk. She looked lucid, but her eyes, they were what got me, were completely saturated with fear. It wasn't fleeting terror. It was a deep ingrained kind of dread. "Are you okay?" I asked. My voice sounded unnaturally loud in the stillness. She didn't answer me right away. She looked towards a gleaming silver sedan parked near the store. In the car parking section, 2 men were leaning against it. They weren't looking at her. They were staring straight at me. The girl's shoulders hunched as if she was trying to shrink into a shadow. "Don't leave me," she whispered again, and this time the words were clearer, almost a plea. I made an immediate decision. "Come inside with me," I said quickly, my voice low and authoritative. "We'll talk to the clerk. They have cameras." She hesitated. Her feet twitched as if she wanted to move, but her body seemed to be waiting for someone else's permission and invisible assent. The 2 men by the sedan remained motionless. One wore a black t-shirt, tall and lean. The other a gray polo, broader in the shoulders. They made no menacing gestures, no waving her back, no shouts. They just observed. And that was what made my stomach clench. They weren't calling her back, weren't chastising her for speaking to me. They just stood there as if I were a variable they were measuring, a calculated distraction. Their absolute calmness was a greater threat than any overt intimidation. I walked sideways, keeping my eyes locked on them, and pulled the nozzle out of the tank, stopping the fuel flow. The pump let out a loud warning beep, but I left it running. I didn't want them to know I was done. "Let's go," I said to her again, holding out my hand. This time she seized the opportunity, jogging quickly toward me. She slipped past me and headed straight for the automatic glass doors. I was the last one in, and the moment I pushed through the door, I could feel the eyes of the 2 men shift from the truck to the store. Inside, the fluorescent lights hummed. The clerk, an older man with a gray mustache, was reading a newspaper behind the counter. "Call the police," I said, leaning in to whisper, "right now." His eyes flicked to the girl who was now huddled near the drinks cooler, then back to me without a trace of panic. He was a night shift clerk. He'd seen everything. Without hesitation, he reached for the landline phone under the counter. "What's the emergency?" he asked, already dialing 911. "Possible attempted abduction," I said, sounding calmer than I felt. 2 men outside. "Silver sedan." He repeated the words into the receiver, then added, "Need a unit here now. We have a girl in here who appears to be in distress." I turned to make sure the girl was still with me, but she wasn't. "Kid," I called out, immediately scanning the aisles. No restroom door was swinging, no freezer door open, no silhouette behind the chip racks or the coffee station. She was gone. Completely. The clerk swore under his breath, still talking to the dispatcher. "Scratch that. She came in with a truck driver. She's vanished now." He looked out the window where the two men still stood. Two males outside by a sedan, no plate visible. "Did you see where she went?" I asked, sweeping my gaze across the aisles. He shook his head. "No, I turned away the second you spoke. I didn't hear a door open. She can't just dissolve." The clerk frowned, staring hard at me. She vanished as abruptly as she appeared. I looked out the window. The two men outside weren't moving towards the store, and that was the horrifying part. If they were abductors, they should have reacted. They still leaned against the sedan, still observing, but they weren't looking at me anymore. They were looking at the empty space where my truck was parked. A chill that had nothing to do with the store's frigid air conditioning ran down my spine. They didn't care about the girl. They cared about me, or rather they were waiting for me. They weren't the predators. They were the lure. "Don't go out there," the clerk said quickly. "Wait for the police. They're almost here." We stood side by side, facing the checkout counter, using the store window as a mirror. I was careful not to stand too close to it, avoiding presenting a clear silhouette to anyone looking in. I pulled out my phone, pretending to text, but I was actually turning on the camera, recording the image of the sedan and the two men. It was only a minute and a half, but it dragged on like an entire horror film. Then, a pair of flashing headlights suddenly swept across the lot, red and blue, no siren, but enough to announce the presence of law enforcement. The silver sedan rolled away as if nothing had happened. It didn't speed, didn't run a light. It just quietly blended into the night traffic, a metal phantom in the darkness. The officers listened to my account, then played back the security footage. We watched it together. Me getting out of my truck, the girl appearing at the edge of the pump island, her moving toward me, both of us entering the store, and then the chilling moment. On the footage, the girl enters, then stands opposite the drinks cooler for about 3 seconds. I lean in to speak to the clerk. When I turn back, she's gone. No door opens. She doesn't enter the restroom. She doesn't duck down. She simply stood there, and then she wasn't. The image of the girl on the screen was small and blurry. The two men were just shadows by the sedan. No license plate was legible. "We'll check missing persons reports," the older officer told me, nodding. "But right now there's no report that matches her description. No family has reported a teen girl missing in this area tonight." "You did the right thing," the officer said. "Get her inside. Keep them in camera view. Involve the clerk. Never separate and walk out to the lot alone." I nodded, but my mind was still caught on her whisper. "Don't leave me." I moved my truck closer to the other truckers. I didn't leave right away. I sat in the cab with the engine running, replaying every detail. Should I have grabbed her arm? Should I have physically pulled her deeper into the store? Or was that exactly what those men wanted? To make me step out into the lot alone? What happened to her in those 3 seconds? I kept checking the news sites for weeks afterward. I looked for reports of a missing girl, of an attempted snatching. Nothing ever surfaced. Maybe she was a decoy. A new tactic, using a person as bait to draw the driver out of their rig for robbery or worse. But what if she was a ghost? A previous victim trapped at the spot where she was taken, repeating her last plea. I will never know. Since that night, I changed my road rules. I call another truck driver when I stop after midnight. I ask the clerk to watch me as I come and go. Simple things, but they are vital, because the scariest part isn't always what happened. Sometimes it's what almost happened, or the thing you never get an answer for. That night in Oklahoma City taught me that on the road, some threats aren't human, but bodiless whispers, pleas without origin, and disappearances without a trace. The real horror is in the ambiguity of the truth. Story 2. The Valve in the Arizona Darkness. Extended, I've been on the road for most of my adult life, 30 years behind the wheel, and I can tell you that highway rest areas after midnight all share the same personality, the personality of emptiness. Not peaceful, not vibrant, just a strained quiet. If you're lucky, the noise is just insects, the buzzing sodium lamps, and the wind. If you're unlucky, you'll hear something else. This was I-10 outside Phoenix, Arizona, June 2018. The heat was still uncomfortably high even after midnight, but the air was much drier than Oklahoma. I was exhausted, already regretting the soggy fish taco from the truck stop churning in my gut. I had lost the battle with my eyelids 5 exits back. My vision was starting to graze the center median. So, I pulled into an Arizona State rest area. The plan was simple and rigid. 45 minutes, set the alarm, a quick stretch, and roll again, just enough to straighten out my electronic logbook and avoid ending up in the ditch. The place wasn't deserted, but it was close. A yellow state snowplow, stuck in Arizona, was parked under the far light like an exhibit. A beat-up dark sedan was huddled next to the vending machines. A family-style minivan past its prime, probably carrying a sleeping family on vacation. The restrooms were brightly lit with white neon, the information center dark and locked. I chose my spot, intentionally parking away from that beat-up sedan, shut off the engine, and the air brakes hissed out a long, tired sigh. Then, I performed my scanning ritual. Mirrors, angles, blind spots, walkways, old habits die hard. Nothing was moving, just thousands of insects orbiting the light poles. I half-closed the blackout curtains, leaving a thumb-sized gap to directly observe the entrance in the parking lot. I stretched out on the bunk, the highway drone filtering in. The hiss of tires, the rhythmic thump on the broken road joints. In less than a minute, I was asleep. The shrill blast of my phone alarm dragged me back after 40 minutes, my head spinning. My mouth was cotton dry and I was still disoriented. I was reaching for the ignition key when something clicked in my brain. It wasn't the air hissing, not an engine, but a small human sound, a muffled groan. I sat bolt upright, my heart punching harder. It sounded like someone trying to scream but being stifled by a glove or a thick piece of fabric. I listened intently. A second noise followed, the kind of creak a dome light switch makes, or maybe a rusty car door hinge. I couldn't place it. Then came that stifled sound again. Shorter this time, like a word stuffed into cloth. Maybe no, or stop. Through the curtain gap, I saw the beat-up sedan parked 2 spaces down. Its interior light flashed once, a sharp white flare, and then snapped off. The kind of flash you see when a door is wrenched open, then slammed shut instantly. Nothing else moved. No minivan doors opened, no phone flashed from the snowplow. My first instinct, hit the air horn, announce my presence, and maybe spook them into fleeing. My second instinct, call 911 immediately and let a patrol cop deal with it, keeping myself safe. My third instinct, step down and knock on the window like the decent, reckless man my father raised. Instead, I hesitated. I told myself, maybe it's a loud argument, maybe it's a drunken girl, maybe it's nothing, just the paranoia of an exhausted driver. But the sound came again. Higher now, panicked, unmistakably human and pleading. My hand reached for the horn cord, then froze. I'd heard the stories. Sometimes the bad guys use bait, a woman pretending to be hurt to lure a driver out of his cab. I needed more certainty before I made myself an easy target. I settled on a plan. Start the engine, turn the truck across the lot using my 80,000 pounds of steel to block the sedan from leaving, then hit the horn. No heroics, just light and steel. Safe and loud. I hit the ignition. The Cummins diesel engine roared a brief cough and the truck began to vibrate. But before I could release the parking brake, the sedan's taillights flashed deep red and then went dark. The car straightened up, gliding forward. And here is what sent a cold shiver down my spine. The car moved without its headlights on, hugging the darkness until the very last second. That driver was deliberately trying to remain anonymous. It glided across the lot like a catfish on mud, unnervingly silent for such an old vehicle. Only as it reached the ramp onto the highway did the headlights finally snap on, piercing the darkness ahead, and the car was gone. Swallowed by the anonymity of the I-10, I kept the truck idling. I was paralyzed by a feeling of failure. I had enough time to hit the horn or make the call, but I chose to analyze, and the analysis cost me the critical seconds. I pulled out of the rest area and followed for a stretch, not to catch them. I knew I couldn't, but just to move, because sitting in the silence of that rest area felt worse than moving in the darkness. But there were 2 exits, and I hadn't seen clearly which one the sedan had taken. In the dark, every car was just anonymous taillights. I drove another 15 miles. I stopped at another 24-hour truck stop, one bathed in bright light and full of people. Safe. I called 911, telling the dispatcher exactly what I had seen. Old sedan, flashing interior light, muffled screams from inside. She asked for the make, model, and plate. I had so little to offer. Dark sedan, old. I didn't see the plate. She said they would send a unit to check the rest area. She asked if I wanted a callback. I said yes, even though I dreaded the sound of the phone ringing. About 2 hours later, a young officer called back. His voice was tired and bureaucratic. "We checked the rest area, sir. Restrooms, dumpsters. We drove the shoulders for 10 miles in each direction. Nothing out of the ordinary. No vehicles matching. Your description? No signs of a struggle, no arrests made in the vicinity." He gave me a case file number, the bureaucratic version of a shrug. "We've logged your statement. You did the right thing by calling it in. You did the right thing by calling it in, but I hadn't done the right thing while I was there." For weeks, I wondered, was that cry a lure or a victim? Had I escaped an elaborate trap, or had I left someone behind, a girl, a man, someone genuinely in danger? If you want a neat answer, I don't have one. No news articles, no missing person flyers afterward, no license plate to circle in a notebook. Just a beat-up car, a single flash of light, a stifled sound, and my own hesitation. That's what stuck. Not what I did, but what I failed to do. The moment I chose personal safety over quick intervention, people ask if I'm haunted. Haunted means something is chasing you. This doesn't. It just sits there like a mile marker I pass in my mind occasionally, a reminder of how thin the line is between doing nothing and doing something, and how quickly that line vanishes once the moment is past. The silence of the rest areas after midnight isn't peace, it's a question shrouded in darkness. That night I answered too late. I've tried to answer sooner ever since. I don't sleep in rest areas anymore. I just pull over, stretch, and go. I'd rather be a little more tired than hear that tragic valve of sound again. If you also think the scariest part isn't the rest stop, but realizing that no one is coming to help, and you had the chance but didn't take it, you're starting to understand. I couldn't find the sedan, but I'm still searching for the answer. Story 3. The Curse Beneath the Tunnels. The night smothered London in a rare blizzard, an anomaly in a city more accustomed to rain-soaked gloom. Snow fell in heavy sheets, blanketing the cobblestone streets, dimming the golden glow of ancient street lamps, and transforming the city into a silent, frozen tableau. Beneath the earth, in the labyrinthine tunnels of the London Underground, a tragedy was brewing, unseen and unstoppable. No one could have foreseen that two trains, the Piccadilly and District lines, would collide with devastating force in the tunnel near King's Cross St. Pancras, shredding metal and claiming dozens of lives. But the true horror wasn't the crash. It was what awoke in the aftermath, stirring in the shadows of the tunnels. The Piccadilly train, packed with late-night commuters heading west from central London, hurtled through the darkness. Across from it, the District Line train, equally crowded, rushed from the east toward the city's heart. A fatal signal error, a momentary lapse in the control system, sent the two steel giants crashing head-on in a damp tunnel near King's Cross. The impact roared like a beast from the underworld, metal tearing, glass shattering, and the screams of passengers swallowed by the dark. Over 50 souls perished instantly, their bodies crushed in the twisted wreckage. Blood pooled on the train floors, mingling with water seeping from cracks in the tunnel ceiling. In that darkness, something stirred, an entity born of death and despair, not of this world. The call came at 2 a.m., cutting through the storm's wail. Charlie Evans, a seasoned rescue worker with salt and pepper hair and eyes sharp as flint, led a team of 10, clad in bright orange gear, armed with flashlights, stretchers, and cutting tools. Charlie had faced fires, floods, and wrecks, but the dread he felt descending into the tunnel was new. A primal unease that clawed at his chest. The air was frigid, oppressive, as if an invisible hand pressed against his lungs. The acrid stench of burnt metal mixed with something fouler, rotting flesh. Impossible so soon after the crash. The team advanced into the tunnel, their flashlight beams slicing through the inky dark, illuminating the wreckage of the two trains. The cars were crumpled, distorted, like the corpses of metal beasts felled in battle. The drip of water from the tunnel ceiling mingled with faint moans. Survivors, they hoped. Charlie split the team. One group to search for the living, the other to cut into the trapped cars. But as they worked, an eerie sensation took hold. The moans faded, replaced by stranger sounds, dragging footsteps, rasping whispers, as if the darkness had found a voice to curse the living. Ellie, a young paramedic, was the first to notice something wrong. Checking a crushed car, she heard a faint tapping like fingernails on cold metal. "Charlie, over here," she called, her voice trembling. Charlie aimed his flashlight through a shattered window. Inside stood a figure, hunched, head bowed, wet hair plastered across their face. Their clothes were tattered, soaked, water dripping from their sleeves into a black puddle on the floor. Ellie stumbled back, her heart pounding. "Charlie, do you see that?" she whispered. Charlie didn't answer. His eyes were locked on the figure, his skin prickling. Its skin was gray, cracked like a corpse submerged for weeks. Its eyes, no, not eyes, but hollow black sockets devoid of light or life. Its mouth twitched, emitting a guttural rasp like wind through forgotten corridors. Charlie signaled the team to fall back. "Stay away," he ordered, his voice low but firm. But before they could move, the figure lurched forward, dragging its feet with a bone-chilling scrape. From the wreckage, more figures emerged. Dozens, their gray skin gleaming under the flashlight beams, their black eyes burning with malice. A woman in a torn business dress clutched a handbag, her fingers skeletal. A man in a long coat, his throat gashed open, bloodless. A child, eyes empty, gripping a mangled doll, water dripping from its matted hair. They moved slowly, like puppets jerked by unseen strings, advancing on the rescue team. Ellie's scream shattered the silence as her flashlight clattered to the ground, its beam spinning across the grotesque faces of the undead. "What are they?" she cried, her voice breaking. Charlie gripped his crowbar, his pulse racing. "Run!" he barked, but it was too late. The undead surged forward with unnatural speed, no longer sluggish. Tom, a teammate, was seized by a figure, its icy hands locking around his throat. His scream cut off as he was dragged into the dark, the snap of bones echoing in the tunnel. Charlie swung his crowbar, smashing it into a zombie's head. The skull cracked open, but no blood spilled, only a black viscous ooze reeking of decay. "Keep moving," he shouted, yanking Ellie toward the exit. The team fought desperately, wielding crowbars, flashlights, anything as weapons. But the undead were relentless. A severed arm kept crawling. A headless body staggered forward, driven by an unholy force. Their black eyes gleamed with hatred, as if the team's presence mocked their eternal torment. Then came the wraiths, ghostly shadows with no clear form, just swirling black smoke with crimson eyes spinning like whirlwinds. They glided through the air, passing through the rescuers' bodies, filling their minds with visions of the crash. Twisted metal, broken bodies, endless screams. Ellie collapsed, clutching her head as a wraith's whispers flooded her mind with images of death. "You left us to rot," it hissed, its voice a blade of ice. Charlie pulled her up, shoving her toward the exit. "Don't stop!" he yelled, his voice raw. The team fought through the tunnel, the undead and wraiths closing in. Liam, a burly firefighter, swung a sledgehammer, smashing a zombie's chest. But it only staggered, its hollow eyes unyielding. Sophie, a medic, fired a flare gun into the darkness, the red light revealing a swarm of wraiths circling like vultures. Charlie's crowbar struck a wraith, but it dissolved into smoke, its laughter echoing mockingly. Only 4 of the team reached the tunnel's exit near King's Cross St. Pancras. Charlie, Ellie, Liam, and Sophie. The dragging footsteps and whispers pursued them relentless. As the glow of the station appeared, a massive wraith blocked their path, a roiling mass of black smoke with countless crimson eyes, spinning like a vortex. "What did you do to us?" it roared, its voice like grinding metal. Charlie pushed Ellie, Liam, and Sophie through the exit, turning to face the wraith. He knew he couldn't win, but he could buy time. "Go," he shouted, swinging his crowbar into the smoke. The wraith dissipated, but a zombie's icy hand seized his leg, dragging him down. Ellie screamed, reaching for him, but Liam held her back, pulling her to safety. They stumbled onto the platform, the station's lights blinding after the tunnel's darkness. Collapsing, they gasped for air, too afraid to look back. The dragging sounds had stopped, but the stench of decay lingered, as if the undead were still watching from the shadows. Charlie's body was found at dawn, sprawled in the wreckage, his eyes wide, his face frozen in terror. The authorities called it a tragic accident, but Ellie knew the truth. She told me this story, her voice trembling, her eyes red with tears. Those creatures weren't just the crash's victims, they were vessels of rage, pain, and a curse born in the tunnel's depths. She swore she heard their whispers in the dead of night, as if they were still hunting her. The Piccadilly and District lines still run, but late-night workers at King's Cross whisper of wet, shambling figures, dragging footsteps, and crimson eyes lurking in the dark. Ellie left London unable to bear the feeling of being watched, but she says the chill of the tunnels follows her, as if those vengeful spirits will never let her go. And that's the end of the story. Thank you all for watching and listening. Have a good night and see you again in the next horror story video on Mr. Zhu's channel.